I'm here with Teg Grenager are you co-founder?
Co-founder and VP product.
Of Adapt TV. And you were just talking about the fact that today you came out with a research report with some juicy insights.
Yep, every year.
You want to share some of those?
I think maybe the second year running, but every year, starting last year and hopefully out into the future, we work with Digiday to survey the industry, the digital video industry, and ask from brands, agencies, and publishers what they're doing in their digital video business. This year there were some very interesting findings. The industry is changing and maturing a little bit, but by far the number one finding, which I'm sure is not hugely controversial with anyone listening to us, is that digital video is expected to grow. Digital video advertising is expected to grow very significantly next year. In 2010, agencies and brands were sort of mixed about whether or not they would spend more or less on digital video in 2011. Of course, we now know they did spend a lot more in 2011.
And just to confirm the definition of what we're talking about, we're including everything from pre-roll when I'm watching an actual video content piece, as well as side-of-site display ads that are video display ads instead of typical banner display.
It's a good question. That latter category is called in-banner video advertising. Probably the respondents to the survey were thinking about that, although from the Adapt TV point of view, it's not a very large part of our business. But sure, I think when brands and agencies think about digital video, they are thinking about both in-banner and in-stream. But anyway, in 2011, nearly 100%, I think in one case it was 100% or 90-some%, were sure that they were going to increase the amount they were going to spend on digital video. And the other thing that was very interesting is people asked them, where do you think that budget is going to be taken away from? And in the past, everybody had said, well, television, of course, broadcast television. The conventional wisdom was that's what digital video is going to steal from. This year, many fewer people said that it was going to come from broadcast TV, and many more said that it was actually going to start taking away from their display budgets. And so I think that's also a maturation of the industry. People realizing that digital video actually is in some ways a replacement for some of what display was trying to achieve. It's trying to achieve branding on the web, and digital video is just much better at that.
Give me some more juicy
findings.
Insights from the research.
So one of them was, so we asked brand marketers what their objectives for their campaigns were. And I think when you go and you talk to a display campaign, you'll hear some sort of mix between some sort of performance metric, like direct response, or trying to get people to sign up or buy online, all the way to some sort of brand notion of awareness. And so last year we asked them this in 2010, and people overwhelmingly said that what they wanted was brand awareness. That's what digital video is good for. It's good for awareness, just like TV. This year, the emphasis shifted markedly, and everyone said what they wanted was brand engagement, which I think begs an interesting question. What is brand engagement?
So I was about to ask.
Right. So I don't think there's no IAB standard definition of brand engagement, but what we believe the brand engagement means, it's the notion that at the end of the day, what you still want is awareness. You still want awareness, you want favorability, consideration, you want these brand metrics to go up. But brand engagement it's like a tactic to help you achieve that. So rather than trying to get you to click to go to some website to sign up online, what you want to do is try to get the user to get involved with the ad unit in some way. So there are many different ways to do it. You can ask them to mouse over in case of some of those in-banner units you were talking about to expand. You can tell them, give them options to connect with you on a social network. So you can give them a like button for Facebook, or you can ask them to view your Twitter feed and so on. And the hope then is that the user is starting to think about the brand more, rather than just have this sort of fleeting 15 seconds or 30 seconds of exposure. And now marketers were overwhelmingly saying that's what's important to them. So if you want people to do brand engagement, then you have to give them some sort of interactive ads. So the ads can't just be linear video-only pre-rolls. They got to have some interactive elements. So they also, fortunately, the same marketers realized this and said, well, when they were asked what sorts of formats are important to you, they said interactive pre-roll was a very important format. I don't think it was such an important format last year, but it is now.
Within interactive pre-roll, what are sort of the most used sort of standard interactive pre-roll ad types?
Sure. So I think ads, there's really two flavors that I'm seeing in the market right now. One is a highly customized unit where there's a creative team inside of a third-party vendor who is assembling this ad together, with the same sort of brand elements and to create a really unique, dynamic ad experience. And you pay for that. You pay to have the creative work done, and then you pay to sort of have it served and reported on properly. There's a new kind of emerging unit, and by the way, the providers that provide all this stuff, there's several of them. I can name three that we work with. One is Innovid. They have a unit called the Eyeroll. There's also Jivox, who has a nice cross-platform interactive pre-roll unit, and Mixpo is the third one. And you can use any of these with the AdaptTV marketplace because we have full BePaid support, so it all just works. But Innovid has actually gone one step further recently, and they have something they call the Eyeroll unit, and they have a little studio for creating the Eyeroll. And the Eyeroll is a much simpler interactive video unit where with a few clicks you can sort of put the share button and whatever on the internet on the interactive pre-roll. And it means
when
that
you say a few clicks, you mean as the person creating the ad?
Yeah.
Okay.
You sort of start with your video asset, and then you sort of dress it up with these things. And so it's much more accessible. There's no big creative upfront fee to get all that work done. But yet you're still making your ad unit interactive. And I think it still provides a lot of value. And what we're trying to do now is make sure that all of our buyers, the ad networks and agencies who buy from the AdaptTV marketplace, make sure that they all know that they can do this, and tell our publishers to start using it as well. So publishers today, what does a publisher need to do to be successful? They need to increase their fill rate or increase their CPM at the end of the day. So we're trying to give them ways to increase their CPM by increasing the value of the ad unit they're giving. So if they're able to go and give an interactive pre-roll and come back to the agency with reports about engagement, then they can charge more for that. So that's something we want to help the publishers do.
Yeah, I mean, it seems with video advertising, there's sort of that tension between, it's like the browser wars of the past where there were the standards, but each browser company wanted to innovate, but you can only innovate so fast, where here with the in-video advertising, it's like an Innovid may want to come up with an entirely new ad format, but if it's not a standard, all these creative agencies have to learn about it, like the technology integration has to happen. So can you talk a little bit about the dynamics between innovation and creating cool new ad types and sort of adhering to IAB standards?
Right, so I'll take off my VP of product at AdaptTV hat and put on my co-lead of the vast BePaid standards group, because this is the other hat that I wear currently. It doesn't pay as much as the AdaptTV gig, by the way. But we're actually working to make the VAST and VPaid standards more widespread, higher compliance, and also increasing the amount of functionality that they provide. So in terms of most of the cool kind of ad units you'd want to do in a video player, almost anything you want to do can be delivered through a VPaid-enabled video player. So VPaid is one of the two standards. And VPaid adoption is still relatively low. I think less than half of publishers today support VPaid, but it's growing. It's grown from 0 a couple of years ago. And the VAST support has gotten great. It's somewhere between 50 and 80%. It depends on exactly how you ask the question. So as publishers adopt VPaid more readily, and shameless plug, one way they can do that is by signing up with AdaptTV. We'll make them VPaid compliant overnight.
Do they get a special discount if they mention this interview?
Right. Mention coupon code, right, Peter. They're basically enabling their video player for any of these cool interactive creatives from Innovid or Jivox or Mixpo or really anyone else. And there are others too. There's the ad selector style unit that we also support. That was formerly known as ASQ. I'm not sure if it's known as ASQ anymore, but
so basically these standards are making it possible for people to sort of drive real innovation on top of those standards.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So VAST is The VAST and BePaid are different. So VAST is a lot about just getting interoperability, just making sure that ad server A can connect to video player X, Y, and Z with no friction. BePaid is about supporting innovation. So BePaid is saying we want all the video players in the world to have a common way of supporting custom ad units, and here's what it is. And frankly, people got that in display probably 10 years ago when JavaScript ad tags came out. And that fueled a huge amount of innovation. People realized they could insert a little bit of JavaScript in your page, and all of a sudden, people came up with all these cool units, page takeovers and expandable, rollover, expandable units, and all this great stuff. We believe the same sort of thing is starting to happen now in video, and from what the Adapt TV survey says, that's what brand advertisers want.
Now, you had mentioned that from the advertiser perspective, when they're looking at the publisher ecosystem, what they want is sort of greater and greater audience segmentation. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think right now there's an interesting sort of debate going on about what's the role of audience data and audience targeting in video advertising. And so let me give you a couple pieces of data. So one is from the Adapt TV Today survey. Buyers, when you ask buyer, what's the most important attribute in selecting your media source? The top mentioned attribute, higher than reach, higher than audience, was targeting capabilities. It was surprising to me. When you ask them what's the single best driver of ROI in their campaigns, they say demographic targeting. Frankly, I don't know if that's easy to measure those things, and in reality, if campaign by campaign buyers are actually preferring those things and are getting the ROI, but they believe that it is, and so that's a very important thing to recognize. And one way to do, and clearly any brand campaign, almost any brand campaign wants to do audience targeting. At the end of the day, you get an RFP from a brand, and it says right at the top, campaign goals. What are you trying to do? I'm trying to reach, women ages 25 to 44. Why? Because they believe that those are the people who buy the kinds of products that they're trying to sell, and so they don't want to waste their money showing their ad to people that aren't going to be using the information, right? So they say that right at the top. So any brand campaign has an audience target of some sort, implicit or explicit. There's somebody they're trying to reach because their product appeals to a certain kind of person. Now, how you tactically achieve that is another question. And in television, the answer has become, the techniques have become honed over years, and they're, given the limitations of the medium, they're very effective. So what's happened has the content producers have made highly targeted content. So it's not an accident that each cable channel appeals to a very different kind of person, and the kind of cable channel that I like and the kind of cable channel my wife likes tend to be different. There's a reason, because they want to sell different ads with different products.
You're not watching a lot of Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Right, and Lifetime Movie Network is not my favorite. So in TV you do that, and then you combine that with the fact that you can buy individual channels, and then you follow it all up with sort of Nielsen ratings, so you know how many people were tuned into each one, and you can do a pretty good job at reaching your target audience effectively. Now, ironically enough, in online, in some ways we're not as good at this. So you would say, Teg, that's blasphemy. We know how to do audience targeting. Online has the tremendous value of having browser cookies. We have wonderful data collected and sold in exchanges like Exalate and BlueKai with this data. We can do targeting very, very precisely to audiences. And I would say yes, but at what fraction of the population?
Well, that was going to be my question. I feel like the thing that's sort of inhibiting the growth of online video ad spending is the fact that when a Coca-Cola wants to target a specific demographic and they need to put a lot of cash to work, nobody can say, oh, we can help you reach 20 million people, 20 million males between the age of 18 and 24 who are into sports.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas if you're doing traditional sort of banner ads, you can. If you're doing TV, you can.
Yeah, there are very few companies that have cookie level data about users, which defines audiences precisely and has high coverage. Very few. and it's generally not publicly available. It's not data you can buy for the purpose of audience targeting, unfortunately. So when you do go buy audience targeting data on the exchanges or from individual providers, what you find is generally very small numbers of audiences or users who are labeled, and so you then bring that into your own universe. Even like Adapt TV's video universe is one of the biggest, and we bring that data in, and all of a sudden we've gone from being able to target 50 million users to being able to target 5 million, out of which only 1 million are in our target demographic. All of a sudden, when we go back and make our response to the RFP, if we were to use that tactic alone, and we're not alone in this, we would be pitching very low budgets. So the overall industry has a problem actually where in order to do brand advertising well, which we haven't tried to do before, that's what's so interesting about digital advertising right now, or online advertising, is that with digital video coming in, we actually finally have a great vehicle for brands, and we're trying to combine that with all the tactics we've learned in display and search for a long time. But it's not a perfect match, because if I'm just trying to get people to go and sign up for my cruise, then I find people that are in market for travel and for cruises to tropical locations, and I retarget the hell out of them. If I want to go find people who might buy Tide, it's actually much, much harder. So I don't have any audience cookie pool of the 50 million Americans who regularly shop for laundry detergent. That doesn't exist. So what's really kind of ironic and funny is that we digital people are sitting back and we're looking at TV and we're learning from them again, and we're saying, you know what? We got to go back to trying to find content targeting that defines the right kinds of, that appeals to the right kinds of users, and using that as a proxy to try to go out and get these big swaths of audiences. And that's what we're all doing.
Flipping to the publishing community, what are sort of some of the, since you're dealing with both markets, you're dealing with the brands and their agencies, and you're dealing with the publishers, what are their biggest issues and challenges right now in trying to grow their ad revenue?
So it is interesting. So I think the problems range, whether we're talking about, they're very different for large publishers, let's say premium publishers, and small publishers. On the premium publisher side of things, I think they're trying to make hard decisions about how to gain broader audiences, what to do with the kind of exposure they get on social media and on YouTube and so on. They can monetize very well the traffic that they have on their sites, on their flagship sites. And I think they know how to sell the hell out of that and to charge very high CPMs and so on. But they're trying to figure out what to do with all of this off-site traffic that they have, how to package that properly, and which kinds of ad campaigns to sell on that kind of inventory.
When you say off-site traffic, what do you mean?
So most premium providers are syndicating their content in some way or another. So they may be giving clips through some sort of syndication marketplace. They may be uploading to YouTube to get some of their traffic coming through there. They may be forming a network of sort of syndication publishers. Anyway, so on the and I think they have other issues too. They're really concerned about data leakage, for example. They're also concerned about, so if you're a traditional sort of web or print publisher and you're trying to, you're seeing all these wonderful CPMs over there in video, that's a key to the future of your business, but you don't have a lot of endemic video of your own. You're trying to figure out what's your strategy to putting more video advertising on your site. The obvious thing to do is to embed players of sort of relevant video content that's relevant to the web article, and selling advertising against that if and when users click on it, or inserting some sort of video interstitial or roadblock between page loads of articles. But it's not clear for them exactly how to do it, because you've got this super high value ad format, but their content doesn't really match that format very well. So those are the kinds of issues that the really big guys are dealing with. The small and medium-sized guys, I think, are trying to deal with the preponderance of channels for different sorts of demand from them. So they have the opportunity to work with, to do some direct deals. If they're small, they may have relationships with strategic sort of, brands or sort of industry verticals that are a nice fit for their audience. They may be working with ad networks, for example, and usually are working with several ad networks. And then they have to figure out what kinds of deals they want to negotiate with those ad networks. And then typically and increasingly they're working with an exchange as well, to try to gain extra, access to extra monetization. And then they want to optimize over all of these things. And sort of the pure old-fashioned notion of optimization is a good start, but it doesn't go far enough. And that's just making sure that on every impression, you're showing the highest value add from the demand sources you have available to you. And that's what we do. And it's critical to do that. But they also have challenges about how do I optimize sort of in the longer run. So if an ad network comes to me and says that they really like my content, they'd like to have it exclusively for the next month at a fixed CPM, should I take that deal? It's a hard thing to know. So we're moving in that, Adapt TV is moving in that direction. We're starting to give them tools. We give them something we call a demand curve, so they can look at any given point in time and see how much, what the pricing is, or how much they're selling at each price point, basically, so they can at least have some frame of reference and some ammunition when they go back to the ad network and say, hey, look, I'm not interested at $10, but you raise it to 12, and I might be interested in locking in the month. But these kinds of business decisions, I think, are very challenging for them.
All right. Well, I know you have a plane to catch, so
Indeed.
I don't want you to miss it.
All right.
So I appreciate it, and thanks for the time. And we'll see you at Streaming Media East.
Very likely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Teg
Peter.
Grenager, Adapt TV.